here we go. I restarted the recording.
Okay.
This will be perfect. So yeah. As you're saying, there's two sides to the service audits, and what are those?
Yeah. So the first one is the one we covered earlier, and that's the services that you're providing to your clients. Do they need help desk? Do they want someone updating their systems? Whatever. That's that full suite of IT services. But we also need to look it around and flip it around and look at it from the perspective of the technology within our client's environment. Are they getting the service that they need out of their solutions? If they have an email filtering solution, but they haven't tweaked it and they haven't put in some white lists, some black lists, adjusted the threat levels, made it specific to their industry or their regulations, then they really aren't getting the service that they need from that solution. I mean, they just basically bought a product and put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
And too many times we see that with clients. So you need to, it's easy if you take it, deal with it in two areas, and that will clarify things.
Well, and that's where I think that your best practices audit, that is always like out there that I think it belongs under the services section.
It does. And we talk about it from time to time. To be honest, if you're listening to this, you're thinking about this, maybe you're checking this on a recording, and you're here because you found a tag for best practices audit, or this has perked your interest. If you're here with us now, the key to a best practice audit is to be an expert at the stack assessment, your architecture side. All right. So if you get those, yes, if you get those two out of order, your best practice will never provide the value you want it to.
Well, I mean, there's some best practices that are universal, but a lot of them are product centric. For instance, like Cisco, one of the best practices is going N-1 on your firmware, unless you really, really need that feature.
Yeah.
But with FortiGate, I always told people, stay a year behind, people. The N-1 isn't version, it's a year. Give it some time to bake in, because they really like to push their QA is, at least when I ran FortiGates, was almost non-existent. I'd load a firmware and be like, what? It just broke half my world, but I want this one feature. It's really cool.
Yep. That's it.
So,
but it's not always, the newest and the latest, greatest. Sometimes it's just the basic functionality of the systems. If you look at, most firewalls that we deploy, they have some really cool, remote access features built in, and people think, oh, I want to do that. But what do we end up doing half the time? We just throw up a VPN. I mean, we just open it up, whether they're going LAN to LAN, or, I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but, or just come in with a client. But if you dig in there deeper, there are ways to customize those so that you really only need to get to the resources that, you're looking for.
Here's how much I really hate VPNs. I wrote a white paper. If you've not read it, it's application streaming and security for SANS about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I despise tunnel VPNs with every fiber of my being. And so I wrote a white paper for SANS explaining why they are such a crap show when it comes to security, and why we were at the time moving to much smarter ways to do VPNs. And every time I see a full VPN tunnel, it breaks my heart a little bit. It's like, that is not a best practice. That's just the easy way to do things. And sometimes the easy way is just, you got to get it done. And then sometimes, the easy way is just what you left there and you just forgot to review it. And that kind of brings us into why service audits are important, is that just because you're giving a stack to a customer does not mean that they're happy with it. I've seen people with great access points that were mismanaged, and it's because they weren't meeting the client's goals. What was the client's goals? Did they see where the traffic was in the environment physically? Did they do a heat map? That's a best practice.
Right.
And if you haven't, if you just slap together a wireless network because you just need to get the job done, okay. But if you do a heat map, now you can optimize that network and make sure you're getting good coverage. And a lot of you, this is second nature. But to your new employees, to your new guys, new girls, they may not know this. You know, maybe their focus is on PC support. Maybe their focus has always been on service support, and they didn't know. Like, how many people watching this video know about looking at their firewall for shadowed rules? I mean, unless you're a network guy, you may not even know how to do that. And there's some great tools out there that'll help you look for shadowed rules, and it'll save you a lot of time and effort when you're troubleshooting. So when it comes to service audits, if you saw the email this week, I kind of poke fun at IT providers, because I've been on the other side of the table where I'm watching MSPs pitch their services, and I'm like, what? Do you even know what these people want? Do you think they care about nighttime calls and about after hours? No. Like, what do they care about? They care about daytime availability and being able to get somebody on site within an hour. They will pay a premium for having that SLA because of the type of business they are. So for instance, I work with schools. They need to know that when they have a problem, they've got 20 kids in a classroom screaming their heads off. They can't wait 2 hours for support. I mean, right now they're just going to say, I'm going to take this off. I'm done. And so if you're able to get ahead of that and make something a little bit more available, and they'll pay you more for it, because now you're aligning your services with them. You're learning about the company and seeing what do they actually want.
That
And
learning
that is
aspect.
the beauty of service. So I equate it to a relationship. And so there's a great book called, was it the 5 Love Languages? And I think I've talked about it before in the community update. And you can do all the right things in a relationship with a friend or with a spouse and still fail at making them happy because you're not doing the right things. And we all know exactly what I'm talking about. I did the dishes last night. Yes, but you left your shoes in the middle of the floor. Yeah, you know that's the pet peeve. And so it didn't matter that I spent 4 hours doing dishes or laundry or cleaning up the house just to make it a little bit nicer for an environment if my spouse is a slob who doesn't care. Maybe I care about that stuff. Yeah. But my spouse cares that I put my cold feet on her at night, to warm them up. What is it that your client cares about, and hit that? And I think Skip and you and I have beat this horse to death. Oh, we have. Find the admin assistant or find that squeaky wheel in the environment and make them happy, because they're the ones that are gonna go to bat for you. They're the ones that are gonna say, "Oh man, these guys are the best," blah blah blah, and it's gonna require very little effort. Give them a new mouse, give them a keyboard, give them a new monitor.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to services, whether it's the services we provide or the services that solution sets provide, it is a bit of a maturity level when you're working with your clients. You have to, as Adam said, we have to learn what our clients need. And when it comes to technology, sometimes, us being the nerdy, geeky guys, we think we already know. And many times we do when it comes to speed and performance, connectivity, options and features. We think we know all that, and we're usually pretty correct on that. But when it comes to how they're using that, are they getting the value that they need? We miss that. And again, kind of speaking from experience over the years, I think many of us has been in a conversation where the client's upset and they're like saying, "Well, why don't we do this?" And sometimes your mouth will get ahead of your brain, and you'll say, "Well, you already have that, or you're already paying for that," and you want to kind of try to claw that back, but you can't, because the client goes, "What? I already have it. Well, then why didn't you make it available to me? Why did you configure that? Why was it?" And you're like,
And And
You
that's what
didn't
your
ask.
QBRs are going to do, and what your your service audits are going to do. It gives you that context to focus on it. So for those of you out there going, quarter one's architecture, quarter two is service, quarter three is risk, quarter four is strategy, and you're doing thematic QBRs. This gives you an excuse to kind of say, hey, how are we servicing them? What is it that you actually want? Like, how can we do it? So I recommend people go out and find one thing that they can do for their client this quarter that will make them happy. Find that one thing and ask them. Don't tell them, because when I sit in the meetings, I'm watching you guys tell your clients all the things you're going to do for them, and then you're under delivering because you overpromised, because your sales guys overpromised, and then you didn't hit that one thing that I really cared about because you didn't ask.
Yes.
And so when I look at service contracts, when I hire companies to help me, I look for that one thing. So when I vote, for instance, I'll go a little political here. When I vote, I look for the issue that I care about, and I looked and see if that person's going to do that thing while they're in office. If they don't do it, I know not to vote for them next time. Same thing with service contracts. When they come in, I look for the one thing you're going to make my life easier on. And if you do that, I'm going to rehire you. I'm going to re-up the contract. I'm going to expand services because now I trust you a little bit more. And so service audits are all about figuring out what your client actually wants. They may not care about how great the servers are running or how few viruses they have if your help desk sucks. If that interaction there sucks, if that teacher calls up a help desk and they get that indifferent help desk person who just passes them off as soon as possible, that contract isn't going to last long. And so what is the one thing your clients care about? What's the one thing that you can do for them this quarter? So make your service audit this quarter. Once you filled out that form, you filled out the audit on the back end, and then ask yourself the question, what is one thing I can do for my client that's going to be a value add? And it may be from, you talk to the CEO, your point of contact, and say, if you can make Alice happy, like if you can just, she's grating on my nerves. If you can help her out, she's been complaining about her mouse for the past 20, years. You know what? Go out and buy that person a nice Logitech MX series mouse, eat the cost, and make them happy. It'll cost you $70, but you'll get so many brownie points with that client. Everybody wins. Yeah. Everybody wins, because now this person feels special. They feel like they're cared for. You can call it like a way to go award, or you can call it a client appreciation package, whatever you want. But I tell you, it's the same thing as my box of donuts. When I'm looking at how to service a department better, I bring in a box of donuts and I sit down and chit chat with them. And inevitably they'll bring up things that are pain points, or they'll bring up something that we did because they're trying to make small talk. And, but I brought them donuts, and so they're excited and they remember the donuts. Yep. If you walk in with that extra monitor you happen to have ordered, got by mistake or overstocked, and you put it on their desk, like, hey, Alice, I had an extra 22-inch. I see you still got this 19 here from a couple years ago. How about I swap this out for you? And those little things, knowing that she's been complaining about her monitor, brownie points. We like to collect those. And that's all about good service. You may have knocked it out of the park doing 8 hours of work on the firewall. You may have been keeping them up 99.999% of the time, but they don't see that. What they see is the visual perceived value. And you hear that in a lot of the peer groups that you're in, is changing that perceived value. And that's how you do it. The little things, the little services that you can provide that make things a little bit nicer. And you'll see shops like flower shops do this. You'll see restaurants do this. Like you look at who's the really famous chicken place that gives you the fresh lemonade?
Chick-fil-A.
Yes, Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A have the best food, in my opinion? No, that award belongs to another restaurant here in Lincoln. And they have my preferred chicken, but Chick-fil-A is known for great service.
Yes.
Their product is just okay, but their service is great.
I like them chicken nuggets.
They're okay. Better chicken nuggets, but they're known for their service and are unapologetic about it. And they're walking around filling your glasses. They're giving you that extra mile. It doesn't cost them that much extra money. But look how successful that franchise is because they go a little bit further.
Yep.
And you want to be that MSP. You want to go through your service audit and you want to look down at all the gaps they have. You want to look down all those questions and then add that one cherry on top. Like, hey, I see that you're an educational institution. How's our help desk treating your teachers? Hey, is there any squeaky wheels I can fix? Like, there's one church I was working with. They had a lady who had a slow computer. And I knew this lady was one of the needy people in the organization. And so I made sure when we got the new MSP, I said, put this person first on your list. If you do this, your ride's going to be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the most important person, but I'm telling you, they're the village gossip.
Yeah.
So that's my advice on service audits.
Yeah, so services really are just as much about listening as they are doing in this one. You've got to, and your clients aren't just going to open up naturally about this. Okay, they're many of you are looking at your clients are looking at you, and they're unfortunately still seeing many times a stereotypical IT guy. All right, and so they don't think, hey, I need to talk to this person about my business. I need to talk to this person about why I'm so frustrated every time I hang up the phone. Dive into that and begin asking them questions about their business. What are the pain points in their process? And you're not going to get all the questions, and don't try to capture everything at once. All right, this is a journey. All right, so just start with some simple stuff when you go in, and maybe the phone call. I mean, they get off the phone and you can tell. I mean, they just really want to go out back and hit something for a little while and come back in. All right, ask a few probing questions. Hey, did that call not go well? Was it the client? And it was like, no, we keep having to pass people around through all the call trees, and we're losing information. I keep having to ask these people over and over and over again for all this information. We're like, oh, so we need to dive into your call trees. We need to get some work done there, and getting that full value out of you as the IT provider and out of their technology as a solution set. That's what Adam said. I mean, anybody can buy great hardware.
Yep.
It takes someone to listen and understand how that organization needs that hardware to really make it work right.
So yeah, in the email I sent, I hinted at this, but when you listen and we do those service audits and you find out what the client actually cares about, when you say, oh, that's a pain point for you. Well, if you just get this service, that goes away.
Yeah.
So the internet's really slow. We can optimize your internet and upgrade your firewall, blah, blah, blah. But then we'll keep a monitor on it for a little bit extra and make sure that your internet is always stable. And now you haven't talked price point, but you've already sold them on it. You've solved a problem. And that's what the service department is all about, solving the problems. The infrastructure and architecture departments give the hardware, but the actual problem solving happens in the service department. How am I using this hardware to solve your problems so you can meet your business goals? That's what they need to know. And when they get that, they can run forward and they won't care what the price point is. And that's the goal with your sales there, is you don't want to get it focused on what's the price. You want them focused on what is the solution, what is the service providing, and how is it going to help me? And what the mistake you guys have is you talking to your clients and you're telling them all the stuff you're going to do, and you're not hitting the things they care about. Or you might, at 1 out of every 10 that you hit your shotgun approaching them, 1 out of 10 is going to be something they care about. And that's what you need to spend most of your time on, is that one that they care about, so that they buy that. And then they'll trust you the next time you make a recommendation.
That's it.
And that's all I have to say about that.
All right.
Anything else to add, Skip?
No, I think this is just, and I'm not an ultimate salesman, so, I don't say this with a lot of authority, but I think this is pretty evident. If you're just trying to sell technology, you've got to be a really, really, really great salesman. But if you're trying to sell business solutions, if you're trying to sell, the answer to some of their business problems, it seems like a much easier sales cycle. And it's going to be a process that's going to endear you to your clients much, much more. So I would say that's probably the more cost effective and long term, the more business savvy approach is to sell solutions and not sell technology.
Yes, sales solutions, not technology. It's a great way to look at QBRs, and that's how you should be treating your QPRs. What problems are you solving for the company? Don't make up a problem or show them a problem they don't know they have. I mean, that's great. You can do that, but it won't net you better clients or better relationships.
Yeah.
Solve problems for them that they are feeling, and then keep things running in the background. It's expected that you'll keep things running. It's expected that you're going to identify problems and solve them. What they're not expecting is for you to make their lives better. And if you can do that, you've got a loyal customer for life.
That's it.
All right. Well, for those of you attending the webinar here in an hour and a half, we'll look forward to seeing you then. Otherwise, we'll see everybody else next week.
See y'all.